Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our Heroes Biographies. We all know the beloved Apostle John, or at least we think we know him. Well, today we're going to get to know him even better, and we're going to get to know what makes him such a beloved hero. This is Heroes 2 Hero Biography. Joining us today to get to know more about John, we have Justin. Hello, Justin. Welcome.
Hey,
How are
Kenya. Good. How are you? It's good to be here.
Oh, so good to have you here. We're so happy that you're going to help us get to know John a little bit better. We have a few facts, but do correct us if we're wrong. We do know that John was the son of Zebedee. We know that he had a brother named James. We also know that they were fishermen and that they were some of the first disciples called by Jesus. We know by reading through the Gospels that he was one of the closest disciples to Jesus, so much so that when Jesus was on the cross, he told John, "This is your mother," to Mary, to let him know that he was basically giving him the responsibility of being a son to Mary. So if that doesn't tell us that there's a close relationship, I don't know what does. So we do have a few more questions to get to know John a little bit better, especially since he is one of the heroes in Heroes 2. So let's get started into those questions. The first question that we have here is, why do we like John's story so much? I mean, how much do we know of his story to even like it?
Yeah, we got so much material about John because he wrote so much about the New Testament. I mean, he wrote the Gospel, he wrote Revelation. He's got like letter 1, letter 2, letter 3. And we got so much detail about his life that it's just really incredible to see the transition that occurred before Jesus, during Jesus, and after Jesus. And I think everyone can identify with him. He speaks very everyday common, yet he's got these really like lofty, elevated, like in the beginning was the word, and just very, very philosophical things going on too.
Yeah, I definitely think that one of the things that stands out about John is his writing. Right? Especially what you just mentioned, just John chapter 1, just those first few verses just kind of come at you and you're like, whoa, we're going to get some real philosophical stuff in this book.
Yeah.
And then you get into it and you find a lot of lovely details. And even the way he just tells the gospel is so beautiful. And there's no wonder why he's considered a beloved disciple. He really does focus on love as a major theme of Jesus's whole ministry here on earth. So I think that closeness, maybe that is why we love and admire John, that we see him as someone who was very close to Jesus, who walked close to Jesus. And the fact that, like you said, the way he talked was very common. And so it almost feels like he's like us, right? It's like, I'm a pretty common person. Can I also be close to Jesus?
Yeah.
Now,
you also have these conversations there that with Jesus and other people that he records. These are like one-on-one conversations, and they're kind of long. And it's almost as if we can kind of be in that conversation as if we're having that conversation with Jesus. So there's like a level of intimacy, a level of intensity that's really uncommon for the rest of the New Testament. And it's just like we have these encounters with Jesus in the Gospel of John.
Definitely. I feel like he really does bring us into the middle of the story. And that, I think that just makes it even more exciting to read. Now, one of the things about John now that we're, discussing him here in the hero biography is the fact that he is in our Heroes 2 game and everyone is very excited to play. And we have to stop and wonder, what makes John such a hero that he's now also included in our game? What is it about him that makes him stand out as a hero?
Yeah, like you said, he's a fisherman, and in one way, he's just like any other person, and he's kind of boring in that sense. But in another way, he's in the inner circle of Jesus. He's like one of the original, right? He was so original that he was one of John the Baptist's disciples, and Jesus calls him, and now he's like in the inner circle. And because he's in the inner circle, he gets to see when Jesus is transfigured, and you see his divinity. Like John was there and saw that. John was at the cross, like seeing Jesus die on the crucifix. Like that's just an incredible witness. But the cool thing is also like after Jesus ascends and John is doing the whole Acts and the early church and all that stuff. I mean, Christian tradition says like They tried to kill him. The Romans tried to kill him, and they were persecuted, but they simply couldn't kill him. They tried to boil him in some oil, and he was just preaching the gospel while he's taking a bath in some oil. So that they eventually had to exile him on an island called Patmos, thinking that he would have no influence whatsoever. But this was when he receives the Revelation vision, and the book of Revelation comes out. Boom. And this guy was just invincible, though he was so normal and common and a fisherman. And for these reasons, I mean, this guy wasn't a hero. He was like a superhero. He was just couldn't be killed.
Definitely. I think that we it's not that we forget, but it's almost like we disconnect these two parts of John's life in a way where we think about John the disciple, but we're not thinking about this invincible John towards the end of his story who's like not dying. He's just surviving. And it makes me think about how important it was for him to live up until that moment where he was able to receive revelation and write the book. It was as if he was just being kept up until that moment. God was with him, was protecting him. And definitely, like you said, this is not just a hero. We're talking about a superhero who just is invincible. If anything, he seems the most invincible of all the heroes that we've discussed so far with his experiences. But although we can talk about all of these positive things, all of these wonderful things that we do know about John, what are some things that he struggled with? We know that there is some of the things we know about his character and his personality towards the beginning of Jesus's ministry. We also know of his story when he was just starting out the Christian church. So what are some of those struggles?
You know, Kenya, like John's one of my favorite characters because I remember when I was younger, my grandmother would preach to me about this character of John and just how John had this temper problem, and he was called one of the sons of thunder along with his brother James. And I remember when I was an adolescent, I was just going through a lot of anger and like lashing out. And this was kind of my grandmother's way of saying, hey, you got to learn from this character. So it's really cool that years after that we're talking still about this apostle. He had an anger problem. He had a revenge problem. He had a vindictive tinge to his heart. And he even, like, when he was following Jesus, and this is kind of comical, that he's like, Jesus, do you want me to call down fire from heaven and just kind of destroy these people who rejected you? And Jesus has to rebuke him, right? And he's coming from like a righteous angle, but he just had all this pent up just anger in him. And you see the transition that occurs, right? That towards the end of his life, and you see in the writings of First John especially, he's known as the apostle of love. He's going around saying, love each other, love, and beloved. And you see that root word of love is found all throughout his writings. So what happens that you go from like a young guy of hatred and pent up rage and wrath, go into a gentle, a soul who's got just love for everyone. I mean, this is the cool, the transition, the transformation that we see in John's life as a whole.
Definitely. I think that that's something that all of us at some point or another maybe can relate to. The fact that it is an incredible transformation, because when we first know him, you know, it's the children of thunder. They're just a lot. And he is very intense. And just like the example you gave there, he's just trying to get fire from heaven and he's just trying to destroy people. And then all of a sudden, like what we know him as is the disciple of love. Like, how does that happen? Which then brings us to this next question, because if there is a huge transformation here, if there is someone who does like this full 180, there has to have been something in the middle of those two versions of his life story. And so what was his relationship with God like? If he got from point A to point B, I'm expecting that this was a very, very beautiful and powerful and just an intense relationship, just full of communication and love and just so many things, because I can't imagine that it could have been anything less than that when we see him go from such an extreme point to a very different extreme.
Well, it seems like John in his writings, he's always saying like, hey, I was there, like I was a witness. I was one of them. And when you compare his gospel to the other gospels, there's like these little details that only he mentions and not the other three. he almost has kind of like this intense these observation skills that he picks up on things that no one else has. So, for example, like Mary Magdalene comes in and she's trying to wash Jesus's feet. Well, John's the only one that picks up and says that the smell filled the entire house. Right? He's very observant. There's another thing, like when Jesus did the whole miracle with the fish, and John said there's 153 of them. Like he goes specifically and mentions the number. And like for 2,000 years, there's all these Bible scholars that are wondering, what does the 153 mean? It's a secret code for something. But it's simply John saying like, hey, dude, I was there. I counted all 153 of them. And that's how much that episode meant for him. All these small little details were very powerful. And he's the only one that describes washing of the feet. Or Jesus, after a whole day of walking around in a desert culture with like a little piece of leather between them and all the dirt, they come back home and they want to wash their feet, and they're all arguing, and Jesus comes in, and Jesus wants to wash fishermen's feet, which are especially stinky. Can you imagine? So you got all these little things, and just shows you that, you got the big stuff, you got the big philosophy, you got the big theology, but you also got these everyday small encounters that mean a lot. And that John just loved his relationship with Jesus. That even after Jesus ascended up to heaven, these are still lingering in his mind and in his heart. And he still wants to reflect this Jesus that he had contact every day with for 3.5 years. It's just a cool, it warms your heart to see such a change in him, in this young disciple.
You know, with what you just explained there, which is so like spot on, it just makes me think that our relationship with God isn't something that's just going to happen from one day to another, that we're just going to see all of these changes from today. I decided today my relationship is good, and so tomorrow I'm going to be a changed person. But it seems to me that with what you just described, it was a day by day thing. Every little thing was kind of building up to something greater, which gave him then such a strong foundation for what was to come, for what he was going to have to go through and survive and actually do. So to all of us, I think that is such a great lesson, right? To just take every little moment that we can have with Jesus, every little moment we can spend with God, and just continue to build on that. So we're coming up to our last question. And I think that you've kind of given us an answer to this last question already. You've given us various different insights, various things about who John was that maybe we kind of missed because we were thinking about the bigger picture. But how can we now, knowing all of this about John, knowing those little details about him, apply his story to our very own lives?
Well, there's two things that come to mind, and I want to really encourage everyone who may not be familiar with John, let's start with the Gospel of John. And for those of you who totally know the gospel, try it again, because the gospel is just so profound, right? But the two things that emerge in my study of John the Apostle is, one is we all have the hope of transformation, right? All of us have that hope. We all may be, X, Y, or Z, but like you said, as more time and more day by day, the walk, the encounter, devotional life, and in beholding Jesus, we will someday become like Jesus. Becoming this loving person may seem impossible for us now, and it may look like that won't happen tomorrow, but day by day, we can have that hope. And when we become like John the Elder, we may become this apostle of love someday. The second thing is that it's through knowing Jesus that we are changed. Some people think, hey, once I become changed, I need to change myself first, and then I can encounter God. But it's actually the other way around, right? In our horrible state, whatever state we are, whether we got the temper tantrums or not, whether we got the addictions or not, whether we got whatever or not, we come to God and say, Lord, I want this to be the first day of our life together. I want to encounter you every single day. So whether it's weird as 153 fishes, or as profound as in the beginning was the Word, Lord, I want to have that experience with you. And then one day we'll turn around and say, man, I've changed a lot. I didn't see it. I didn't see myself change every day. But when we look back after this trajectory, we can see that God has been very powerful in our lives. So this is the hope that I have as I look at the character of John in Scripture.
I think that now when we start playing and choosing our characters and we choose John, it's going to be a reminder, I think,
Mm.
as we go through the game and we learn more facts about John, just a constant reminder that we too can experience that transformation no matter what point we're starting from.
Yeah,
And
right.
that all we really have to do is give our hearts to God and just day by day, get to know him better. And as we do, then we'll also be able to reach that level that John, once he was an elder, was able to reach. And what a wonderful just piece of hope that is to so many of us. So
Amen.
thank you,
Amen.
Justin, for joining us today. Definitely, what a blessing to have heard so many beautiful insights from the life of John that we can now apply to our lives as we continue to grow in Jesus. So thank you so much for everything that you've given us today.
Thank you, Kenya. Thanks for the privilege.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us on another Heroes 2 biography. We really have learned so much about characters that maybe we thought we knew so much about, but now we're realizing that we can still get to know more about them. We might have to reread their stories, and we're definitely going to play some Heroes 2 to get to know them better. So we will see you next time in our Heroes 2 hero biography.